Greetings and salutations, I'm Keb, you're you, and this is 80 Days. We are gonna start a new game tonight, because yesterday things didn't go so well. We ended up a bit late on our journey around the world, and we'll see where the trail takes us today. We're gonna take another path, and we will see if we can actually succeed, you know. Because again, this game is set to Jules Verne's novels. We have, more specifically, 80 days around the world. Yesterday we managed to get around the world in 84 days, which is nothing good enough. So, obviously, we were tasked with doing so again. And that's what we're going to be doing. Now, there are, as I said yesterday, you can find tidbits from the his other novels. So we'll see what we find along the way. Anyways, London 1872. I've entered into the service of a new gentleman. It would seem he is a gambling man. So, as yesterday, we are going to be playing. We're going to play as Passepartout, his new servant or valet. There's a difference, and we're basically tasked with guiding Phileas Fogg around the world as soon as possible. We have to mend the budget. We have to make money along the way. I think that's the route we traveled yesterday. Yeah, it is. The route we traveled yesterday and that failed is on the globe. Oh dear. Just to remind us, this wasn't the way. Wait, doesn't it actually start a new one? Doesn't it actually start a new one? Click to begin. Yeah, it does start a new one. Yeah, okay. So we just showcased the old route yesterday. So, as before, as yesterday, actions in the cities will just keep on rolling, so I can't really pause there. The clock just keeps on ticking, so I have to be a bit quick within the cities. So I can't really ask chat for too much for choices, really, because of that. I hope you'll bear with me on that. But anyways, let's begin. So Phileas Fogg is getting his wager. There we go. My master returned home from the Reform Club with a strange gleam in his eye. Passepartout, said he, we are going around the world. Pack my cloak and my evening jacket. There is not a moment to waste. So, first things first, this is a new game seed. Yesterday he talked about packing the hunting rifle. But no hunting rifle this time around. We still start with £4,000 and we'll see how things go. So we have to pack quickly. And look at that, we have a new path. So let's pack... Indian timetable. This, do you want a top hat? Evening jacket, I think. And that's... well... I can only pack one box out of the apartment, unfortunately. But look at that, we can go to Cambridge. So let's go to Cambridge. By mail car. Let's go. So we'll take a very different route. I thought we were going to be on seed number 2. We are on seed number 3, actually. So perhaps I played yesterday on seed number 2. I don't know. Either way, the story is going to be very different this time around. It might be a bit shorter than yesterday as well, but that's okay. We hurried downstairs, only to find a carriage was already waiting. I looked at Monsieur Fogg, but he was as surprised as I was. To Charing Cross, my master shouted, as he clambered in, but the cabby leaned down and shook his head. Sorry, governor, he replied. I've been sent to pick you up to take you to Cambridge. Who sent you? I demanded. The fellows, the driver replied. The man whipped the horses, the magnetic tips of the lash connecting with the spark igniters on the machine's flanks, and then we were off, rattling along the cobbles, heading north. So again, this is a steampunk game, so all of you'll see a lot of mechanical horses and stuff like that. Anyways, this is a calamity, I declared, but Monsieur Fogg gestured me to silence. It is no doubt my old college wishing to encourage me to make a donation, he replied sagely. Well, perhaps they will have something to offer us our cause as well. How could he be so calm when all hung in the balance? Such, of course, was his way. We flew up the Great North Road, the carriage showing an amazing turn of speed that pleased my master greatly. This is no normal phaeton, I remarked. Indeed not, he replied. It seems our learned friends have been busy. I have great hopes for this little diversion, Passepartout. And with that, we fell into silence until we arrived a few short hours later. So normally you always go to Paris first, right? And then you pick your path. This time around, not so much. We arrived in Cambridge, and we'll have to spend the night. Which is fine. The carriage set us down outside the gates to Trinity College. The cabbie tipped his hat. And I tipped him, of course. For despite our rough displacement, we had been treated most courteously, and one does well to ensure the lower working classes are fairly rewarded. My master, on the other hand, was cheerfully striding inside, nodding to the porter at the gate, whom he appeared to know by name. I hurried to catch up, and caught my master just in time, as a daunting figure in a long black robe swooped from a doorway, more or less gathering Monsieur Fogg up in a cloud. An assassin! A thief! A lunatic! No. I waited for an introduction to be made. So you can do some really weird choices in this game and steer the dialogue, but I'm gonna try it for the good guy dialogues. Just because I like doing that. But you can do some really funny ones too. I waited for an introduction to be made. The figure stood back and declared himself to be Professor Infray, head of the omatology at the college. You must be Passepartout, he declared, rounding on me cheerfully. Tell me, do you prefer coffee or Madeira? What is Madeira again? I don't think... please dispense with the formalities. Oh, that's not gonna go well, I declared. We are on an important mission. But of course you are. This way. He beckoned us to follow, and we did, arriving eventually at his study, an island of a desk surrounded by a small library that had carelessly tumbled out of its shelves. I hear you are going around the world, Phileas, the professor remarked, and we would like to offer you some assistance. That is most generous, Monsieur Fogg remarked. Not really, the professor replied. You are a Trinity man. Your expedition will be for the glory of Trinity College. We will put it in our periodical, you see. It will annoy Oxford terribly. It seemed a fair trade. Still, the idea that this strange old gentleman could help our cause was intriguing. And I leant in to hear what was on offer. But, declared the professor, enough business. First, you will dine with us in hall. I have gowns ready for you, and young man, he turned to me, servants are not usually allowed to dine at high table, but we will make an exception. Come. And so, for the first night of our great journey, we dined with silverware and candlelight. Under the beady eyes of somber portraits, and in conversation with a flock of erratically minded men and women, whose discussions turned on a sixpence from Irish passage tombs to aeronautical wingtip design. I became somewhat sozzled, much faster than I realized, and when we retired to bed, it was with a smile on my lips and a cry of, "What a marvelous adventure" on my tongue. Okay, so our funds went down because we tipped the cabbie. All we can do is explore, so let's do so. We rose, breakfasted in the hall more soberly, and met the professor on the roof. This is what we've been working on, he declared, waving to a folded contraption in front of us. It resembled a sleeping bird. A gyrodyne, the professor continued, powered by the rise of evaporating water through micropores, Most interesting. We were thinking of testing her across the North Sea. We thought you might pilot her. A gyrodyne, I declared. Is she fast? Oh, extremely. We can have you in Christiania within 6 hours. So long as she doesn't crash. The man beamed. So, we are agreed, you will take her. By the way, this is one, for me at least, this is one of the tokenisms of the era. This game is set to 1872. And in that period, the city of Oslo had another name, namely Christiania. So, so this feels, you know, this strikes home for me. Anyways, we are of course going to go by gyrodyne across the North Sea all the way up to Norway. What could possibly go wrong? Let's quickly check the market though. Worth a ton of money in Munich. We're not going that way. I think we'll be... I will be fine. Because I have something special in mind. Anyways, to Christiania by experimental gyrocopter. Let's go. What could possibly go wrong? Evening, Gun Mage. What is this game? I can explain it again. This is basically a visual novel kind of thing, set to the 80 Days Around the World novel by Jules Verne. It is a steampunk setting though, so you'll have quite a few different machines. And you play as Passepartout, his servant, and your task is to bring Phileas Fogg around the world in 80 days by any means necessary and any path necessary. There's tons of stories. Basically, think of it as an interactive book in many ways. Can you go to Lithuania? I don't remember at the top of my head. I don't remember if Vilnius is part of the route. But there might be. I know you can go through Minsk and St. Petersburg and a few cities in the area. So I assume the most likely target would be Vilnius, but I don't recall. But not this run, Gunmate. The next run, perhaps. Not this one. I have something special in mind. The pilot touched a control, and the gyrodyne began to smoke and hiss. We clambered quickly aboard. Next up, Europe, the pilot declared. The great craft unfolded its wings, seemed to pause a moment as it waited for a gust of something, and then we were up and away into the air. Let's converse. Let's see if we can figure something out. Monsieur Harry, let's talk about Christiania, please. The Norwegians are a very suspicious people in some ways. No, we're not. I want to go to any of these places. Stockholm? I'm guessing you didn't go to Cambridge then. Nope. Sorry. Frenchman, of course. And not too educated besides. Talk more about Christiania. I want to go north. Christiania to Helsinki. Via Tromsø. There we go. Christiania to Amsterdam. She didn't want to talk more than that. Fine. So we learned a few new paths. But I want to go north. Much further north. The journey across the North Sea was surprisingly brief, the little bird craft bouncing up and down in the air. It seemed to collect water vapor, rise, dry out, and then fall, and then repeat the process. The pilot seemed untroubled by this motion, so I took it to be normal and sat back, enjoying the ride as best as my poor juggled cranium would allow. Finally, we settled down on the shores of Norway. We thanked the pilot, and we're on our way. Alright, we don't have any choices here, unfortunately. I can't even explore. That's strange. We should have an option. Let's spend the night. The streets of Christiania were completely deserted. We did not see anyone anywhere. We found a hotel in the end, but it was deserted and cold, and there was no dining to be had. Monsieur Fogg seemed quite unruffled. "We will leave money on the counter," he declared, "and perhaps a note that their service could be improved." Luckily, we had brought a warm layer with us. The woolen cloak blunted the edge of the chill. Okay, let's explore. Oh, here we go. Now that's the path I'm looking for. The city was empty. I was... quite puzzled. And sought someone to ask, but there was no one about. "This is an eerie place," Monsieur Fogg remarked, in an uncharacteristic display of emotion. Certainly the silent streets had a certain menace to them. "We must find the municipal center, the government," I replied. "A city cannot be left totally abandoned." A little more walking and we came to the Parliament building, and beside it a set of freshly built steps leading down into the ground. The passage was lit by gas lamps. I paused at the entrance. "Shall we go below?" I murmured to my master, but he was already striding on ahead and down the steps. I hurried after him. We went below, and sure enough, there were lights, and then shops, and then people, and carriages, and restaurants, and indeed an entire city built beneath the surface. I demanded to know the meaning of this construction, and we eventually found a man called Arne Garborg, a poet, visiting from the countryside. "There is a war coming," he explained. "We are sure of it." "So this is a defense?" He nodded. "If we are used to it, if we are used to it now, we will not suffer when the bombing begins. When the fighting begins, there will be airships carrying bombs in the skies. It will be better below." I was astonished by his unflappable calm. "But how will you farm?" I demanded. Grow crops, feed yourselves." "Phosphorescent seaweed," he replied, with great pride in his voice. "We Norwegians have a solution for everything, you will see." I spent a little while browsing markets, of which there were plenty here below, though I found little of interest except a chess set with pieces made of finely carved walrus ivory. "Yours for £100, the vendor declared. "It is highly valuable." I paid her, and packed the set carefully away into the case. It was a fine souvenir, but looked also like it might be worth something in trade. Okay, fine. In Rome, yeah, that's not where I want to go. I want to go north. Speaking of, by the way, we wanted to see other Lithuanian cities? No. You have Minsk, Warsaw, and Helsinki. I'm sorry, no Lithuanian city got mage. So I couldn't have done that even if you wanted to. That, on the other hand, is what I want to do. 7 AM tomorrow. Okay. I want to go north and more north. So we'll be spending the night here. Then I have to be quick, because we don't have much time to board that other airship. With what remained of the day, I afforded my master every service, ensuring he had fresh tea with the intention he would have a comfortable night. The reason for that is I need to keep his health up, because I have something special planned. At least I think it's going to be possible. Tromsø, let's go. The Fjordic Flyer. Let's go. Why would you go to Tromsø? Oh, I have my reasons. So, as I mentioned before, I mean, in the 80 Days novel, you just go around the world, right? You travel through Egypt, through India, up along the coast of, well, with steamships from India to Japan, and then across the Atlantic, and across the Pacific, and then across the Americas by train, and then across the Atlantic by ship again. You know, a more default route. But there are some very special routes in this game, and I'm trying to go for one of them. That is why we're going way north. We found ourselves at an airship dock and blowing clouds of white steam from our mouths as we waited to board. The captain, a shockingly blonde lady with stern sculpted features, brought us tin cups of hot tea and insisted on punching us each on the arm. I punched back in comradely fashion, and she frowned, but beyond that, there was no particular rebuke, except, of course, from my master. It is good for a pilot to have some spirit, he remarked. It suggests that they may not be totally helpless in circumstances of some pressure. We boarded the airship soon after and lifted up, ready to trace the delicate lacework of the Norwegian coastline on our way down. Let's groom fog. You can't see his health, it is hidden behind my chair, by the way, so I forgot to move my camera, I'm sorry about that, but it's not a big deal. I'll let you know if it's close to death. I confess to a certain bafflement as to my master's intentions with this particular leg of our journey. Perhaps we were to circumnavigate from north to south and back. And we might travel down across the Americas to Cape Horn and then across the very bottom of the world to Australia. Of course, any serious polar expedition would be properly equipped, rather than traveling with a few suitcases. Towards evening, the airship descended towards a small fishing town, nestled between the two dramatic slopes. It was, I think, the smallest place I had ever seen. Well, that's one way to describe Tromsø, I suppose. We can spend a night at a hotel. Tromsø by night was no more endearing, and it was substantially colder. I did little but wander in a state of some isolation until I stumbled upon a bar in which several fishermen and women were playing chess matches. It was hardly fine entertainment, but I won a few matches, which at least let me feel I had achieved some part of my cultural duties as a traveler. Your character is now dependable. Hey! So now we can explore. Yes, here we go. I think this is our last chance to turn back, but we're not gonna. I walked the streets of Tromsø, a pleasant enough perambulation thanks to the dramatic slopes of and the glacial lagoon. There is a university, they tell me, though I cannot think who would endure such cold just to read books. But my iron was quickly stirred to keep me warm when I encountered one Mademoiselle Fleischer, who stopped me on the street to ask, without irony, if it was a pleasure for one such as myself to visit her city. You mean as a valet? I asked in some bemusement. No, she exclaimed, as an ambassador. Mademoiselle, I fear you are mistaken, I began, but she was not to be deterred from her accusations. Do not try to disguise it, she replied hotly. It is written all over you, from that moustache down to these mademoiselles of yours. You are an ambassador from the Paris of the Europe to this, the Paris of the North. We have been promised a liaison between our cities for many years now. Who else would you be? Tromsø is the second capital of Norway, you know. By the way, they do call Tromsø the Paris of the North. I have no idea why, but they do. So, I'm amazed the developers of this game actually knew that. I don't think they are Norwegians, so... Anyways, Mademoiselle, I'm traveling around the world, I told her sternly. She looked downcast. Is that so? Ah, well, monsieur. Enjoy Tromsø while you can. With that, she let go of my arm. Her grip had been iron-like, and she all but skipped away down the cobbled streets. Streets which were nothing like boulevards, I might add. Let's head to the market first and foremost. The fur coat, I think I want that. The buffalo hide, Peterborough, no. Minsk, Istanbul, no. No, I want to keep that. Not gonna head to Rome, but yeah, sell it now. That's fine. I think I want to keep the rest for now. So I want to depart not to Helsinki, but here to Smeerenburg. Departs tomorrow at 8 AM. We'll have to spend the night, which is fine. I can still carry 2 suitcases, so hopefully you won't have to sell anything. As night fell, I attended to Monsieur Fogg. Again, I need to keep his health up. Providing him with fresh clothing. He's now at 93 points of health, by the way. And that's going to be kind of important, given where we're going. Smeerenburg, with a Pomor hunting balloon. Let's embark. What could possibly go wrong with this path? I have arranged transport for us, Monsieur Fogg said, cool as a cucumber. Where are we headed, monsieur? I asked in interest. He shuffled his newspaper. We are going north. He took a sip of tea. Very north. I held my tongue and waited. My master was in a strange mood, and I found myself intrigued. Smeerenburg, he said, showing me the location marked on his almanac. It was indeed very north, perhaps even very, very north. And then? Monsieur Fogg looked up at me, a gleam in his eyes. Sometimes, Passepartout, he said slowly, the best way to untie a knot is to not untie it at all. Sometimes one must simply slice through it. The Alexandrian solution, I murmured, and I fancy his cool blue eyes warmed a little. Though, monsieur, if you are Alexander the Great, does that make me... Are we gonna be Bucephalus or are we gonna be Hephaestion? For those of you who don't know, yeah, the first one is his horse, Bucephalus, who died at the Ganges, I think, or one of the Indian rivers. And Hephaestion, his general, is also presumed to be his lover of Alexander the Great. So which option should we go for? Are we the horse that's gonna die, or are we the lover? I'm not entirely certain if this actually affects the outcome, but I suspect it does. And of course, if you have no opinion, I'll just pick one. Yeah, let's go with the Hephaestion. What could possibly go wrong? I cast my eyes down after I spoke the words, aware of my presumption. Hephaestion was more than Alexander's general. He was... a friend, perhaps even more than a friend. Had I revealed myself too truly? Oh dear. Monsieur Fogg merely took a breath and rustled his newspaper and ordered me to ready our bags to depart soonest. I found myself entirely full of gratitude for his habit of stiff reserve. Let's groom Fogg again. I mean, I could converse, but there's no point. This path is kind of locked. We're not going to see many other alternate paths. And keeping Fogg's health up is going to be very important. The captain of our balloon was a dark brown woman by the name of Jana Starostina. What sort of settlement is Smeerenburg? I asked, imagining an ice-whipped testament to nature's glory. The captain heaved a sigh. The sort where you need to keep your wits about you. She raised an eyebrow. It's a lawless place, and you and your master seem Genteel fellows. It did not sound like a compliment, and so I merely gave her a level look. Captain Starostina smiled tightly. Don't get drunk and try to stay out of fights. I'm sure you will be fine. With that, she was summoned to the navigation room, and I retired to our cabin to rest. Onwards we go. Good, I got his health back to 99 points out of 100. The balloon seemed to make good time through the colder air. Below stretched an endless ice-like sea. I was surprised to see it quite alive. We saw diving creatures and streaking fish shoals, and at least once the rise and slap of a whale. I asked our captain if there were many people here in the north. She laughed. There are enough to start an argument, she replied. More than enough for that. And then we were sinking lower, and we watched a whaling ship bring in a bleeding leviathan from the sea as we settled down to land. Evening, Wownet. Yeah, we're going far north, by the way. You already missed me going through Norway, if you only just joined. We've arrived at Svalbard, way in the north. We can quickly check the marketplace. A shaving kit. The shaving kit might actually be worth it. I think I'm gonna keep the rest for now. Let's explore. Yeah, we started a new run this morning, yes. We failed yesterday. We ended up with 84 days. So we're trying something very new today. We had a new gaming seed, so a new path to Cambridge opened up instead of to Paris. And that opens up some special options, which is what we're doing now. The stench of Smearenburg was all pervading. It mingled with coal smog and thick plumes of steam to form a foul miasma that hung thick.
4 months. 80 days? That doesn't make sense.
And it makes sense to me, Cephalon. Thank you so much for resubscribing. My goodness, 4 months. Greatly honored by that. Thank you. And I hope you'll enjoy the story. We'll see how things go. It's going to be a very different track. It mingled with coal smog and thick plumes of steam to form a foul miasma that hung, thick and grim and unaccountably oily, over the settlement. I took a few deep breaths, trying to accustom myself to the terrible odor as quickly as possible. It is Wales, a nearby fellow put in sagely, in Finnish-accented English. I greeted him courteously, feeling the need to maintain some semblance of civilization in this place so lacking in it. The man pointed at several copper kettles nearby. They were set into brick ovens belching black smoke from their chimneys. They render the whale blubber there, for oil and fuel. You become accustomed to the smell. I introduced myself to him, and though he shook my hand, he shrugged as he did so, as though our meeting was of little note. I am Vitti Jokinen, he said. You don't look like seal hunters or smugglers. So what are you doing here? We are going around the world, I said, with perhaps less enthusiasm than was warranted. Oh, are you adventurers? He pronounced the last with a generous smearing of disdain. I had hoped, perhaps, that you were geologists. Do you often hope for geologists? I asked curiously. Seems a slim hope in these parts. It is the Arctic, he shrugged. After hunters and adventurers, scientists are the most common breed. So what is your purpose here? He smiled and pointed to his collar, where a copper lily pin gleamed metallic against his furs. I am an artificer. I introduced myself and my master politely. It was never a good idea to cross an artificer. I am here on an expedition to the North Pole, as it happens, he said, casually enough. Monsieur Fogg's demeanor altered entirely. You don't say, he remarked. My good fellow, Let me buy you whatever it is they drink here. I waited to see Monsieur Jokiden's response. But a moment later, both he and my master were gone, away down the street and plotting like rogues. Oh my. Where do you think we're heading? Spend the night at the hotel. I was masterless in a cold city. I walked the cobbled streets and steam-vent heated alleys of Smerenberg. I watched a group of hard-bitten men and women cleanse a whale's flesh from its bones, chatted amiably with a group of shivering prostitutes at the dock, and narrowly avoided a brawl at one of the taverns. I could not stop thinking of the North Pole. It was a dream, a myth, as much as any real place. It was one of my dreams too. What child had not read the stories of Franklin's lost expedition of 1845 and imagined themselves finding his ship perfectly preserved, or sailing into the pure white and making something unknown known? Keep in mind, this is 1872, right? So this is before anyone actually got to the North Pole, and more than 30 years before anyone got to the South Pole. And of course Franklin's expedition, I believe, was eventually found. Anyways, these were my thoughts at the moment my master returned. Cheeks reddened with an unnatural flush. "Passepartout," he announced, slurring his words ever so slightly. "We are going to the North Pole." "I will prepare some hot water," I replied. After all, what else was there to say? New path. I mean, this is one way to go around the world. Let's depart for the North Pole on the Ice Walker. Gonna take minus 70 health. Ouch. Off we go. Fortunately, we do limit that with some of our wardrobe. Let's go on the Ice Walker.